Welcome back. You're live with Expresso as things take an interesting, sinister turn this morning. This morning we're launching a brand new feature on Expresso. It's all about the weird and wonderful world of law. Absolutely. Joining us is a man whose voice you may recognise. You might have heard him on Monday mornings with Mr. Nick Hamman, another favourite of our show on 5FM. Lawyer and Director of Legalise in Cape Town, Eitan Stern. Yeah. Welcome to it, man.
Absolutely, man.
Nice
Great
to be
have you
here.
join us. Now, each week, Eitan will join us to have a look at an unconventional side of the law as we delve into something interesting or some interesting scenarios that you may never have thought of. And this morning's topic was sparked off by one of the Expresso team members. Now, she has a mischievous cat with a tendency to steal socks from neighbours, often brand new pairs that have never been worn before. And she was wondering whether she could be held responsible for her cat's crimes. Call it hashtag the cat burglar.
Eitan, welcome to it, man.
Very, very interesting
even
way
Bob
of
rocked up here. He was like,
exactly.
I'm down with this.
Is this regular that the dog walks onto the set?
Only when we talk about cats and law together. He's like, I told you.
It's always nice to have your career called Weird and Wonderful.
After all the slog, the hard work.
But okay, let's start from the beginning. So is it true, can she be held liable for her cat's crimes?
Okay, so it's quite an interesting one. So we follow in the world a theory called animal welfares instead of animal rights. So basically what that means is if you own an animal, the animal doesn't have rights within itself like we have human rights. Animals are property. They're much like socks or cars. So if you own an animal, you're going to be pretty much responsible for whatever the animal does in its life.
But then you've got to prove ownership. Okay, do we register pets when we get them?
Is there a...
Or can you say, it's not my cat. He's just he's hanging around my house.
Just drop the socks by my bed. I don't know.
Yeah. So you don't have to register ownership, but within any city or any district, there's going to be certain laws that relate to your animals. So while an animal's your property, you are going to have to. You've got the Animal Health Act, so you have to keep it healthy. You're not allowed to abuse your animal. You've got the Animal Performance Act, which says you're not allowed to put your animal in the circus. And make it perform. Every city and country is going to have certain laws around what you can do with your animal. And with that, there's going to be certain things that you have to live up to. So if you live in a dwelling of a certain size, like a city flat, then you're only allowed a certain amount of animals within that.
Sure.
You're not allowed to take your animals to beaches that aren't allowed animals on them. Yeah. You're not allowed to, you have to fence your animals in certain ways. So there's certain things that if you're an animal owner, you have to do in order to look after your animal properly.
Yeah. You talk about certain laws governing the ownership of pets throughout the world, cities, and my jaw was on the floor the other day where some people, like I think in Dubai or in one of the UAE countries, people literally have tigers and lions and cheetahs.
Well, there's more of the big cats in captivity than in the wild.
I mean?
It's crazy stuff, in my opinion.
What's the legal standpoint in South Africa? Are you allowed to own an exotic pet, and what qualifies as an exotic pet?
Special registration.
So according to South African environmental law, you're not allowed to keep wild animals in captivity. So you wouldn't be allowed to have a lion or tiger, of course, unless you lived in a farm or had land that could house it. Then if you want to have exotic pets, something like, a bearded, what are they called? Like a bearded dragon.
Yes.
Then you have to, you can have them, but you have to have a certain license in order to have them, so you can apply. So if you are someone that wants to have an exotic pet, like a snake or a bearded dragon or something a bit crazy, then I would look at the local bylaws and see what you're allowed to have and see the registrations.
Is there a vetting process that goes with it, or do you just have to kind of follow through with it and then you can get the python?
I would hope so. I would need to look into the laws of that, but there probably is an application process, and part of that process would be probably vetting you to make sure that you can house it.
Both weird and wonderful. It has been, my friend. We're going to continue this discussion in just a moment. Really, really interesting stuff. I know we all love to have our pets. You know how much we love our pets here on the show. But there are some really interesting legal conundrums that kind of get into the mix there as well. We're going to continue the chat in just a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Well, we're back again on the couch with lawyer and director at Legalise here in Cape Town, Eitan Stern, who's here to talk to us about a very interesting topic that was brought about by the fact that one of our co-presenters, we won't mention any names, allegedly has a cat that allegedly has stolen socks from alleged neighbours and brought them to her house. So we're talking about the responsibility that a pet owner has towards their pet. And if I remember correctly, Eitan, earlier on you were saying that because a pet is like a car and like a house, it's property that you own, you are responsible
100%.
for the actions of that pet.
Does your dog bite? What happens in the case of... That was a terrible impression. Sorry, man, but I did try.
I don't know what that was an impression of.
Spectacularly so, I'm sure. No.
Nice.
Who would have thought that this talking about pets would raise so many really interesting legal questions?
Yeah.
And I think one that does seem quite obvious, when you get bitten by someone's dog, what are the legal ramifications there?
Okay, so if you own a dog, as we said, you're responsible for it. So whatever your dog does, you're going to be responsible for. So if your dog makes a mess, if it bites someone, if it makes a noise, these are all things that you're responsible for. And dog bites, this actually follows a really old Roman Dutch law, which is still involved in our law, and it's if your dog bites someone, you are going to be responsible to that person. We follow what's called strict liability. So if you take your dog out and it bites someone, you are going to be strictly liable. There's just a few exceptions to this. So if, say, someone trespassed in your property, which we'll deal with later, if you... if the dog was aggravated, if someone tried to mess with your dog and it bit them, or if you warned someone, don't mess with this dog and it bit them, then these things are going to be like exceptions to whether you'll be liable. But in general, if you have a dog and it bites someone, you should be in trouble.
Yeah, we'll get to that just now, this sign, because there was a time and space, well, I think even now still.
Yeah, but it also...
Interesting question.
Very dark association.
Let's say I'm jogging on the promenade, and this is like
Okay.
focused on people that don't really clean up after their dogs. I'm jogging on the promenade.
Ah, man.
Who are those
Your
people?
dog poops, right? And I'm focused on my run. You leave the poo, but I saw your dog poo.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say I did. And now
my
I
trainers are
slip
red.
on that. No, I slip and twist my ankle, and I'm injured. Can I hold you responsible for not picking up after your dog's doo-doo?
So that is an interesting one. There's a couple of twists and turns on there. Essentially, I guess, yes, you would if you slipped and hurt yourself. See, the way it works in the law, if you're responsible for something, legally responsible, then the person who gets hurt is entitled to damages. So if you slip on someone's dog mess, or more realistically, if you get bitten by someone's dog, then you can claim for what damages you suffer, and that can be hospital bills. If you're traumatized, or if it's a kid, it could be psychology bills. If you have to miss work because of the injury, you could claim for your loss of income. So all the things that stem from the injury that you could claim for. So it's really important for people to remember, you know, there's a big culture to like get these dogs bred, which look really cute, but often these dogs have aggression issues. So you must be really careful if you're buying a dog from a breeder, you know, make sure that the breeder knows what they're doing.
Generally, aggression comes from the owner's lack of
For sure.
training. Yeah. I've got to ask, in a public space, if the city owns that space and they've condoned that this is a dog-free space, and you slip on that dog's mess, is it the city's responsibility to keep that area clean and look after you in that space? If you get bitten in that space, is it still...
That's a really interesting question, probably a lot more complex than you
Nuanced,
realize.
yeah.
We can deal with it in another show maybe, but essentially, yes, the city does have a responsibility to keep its city clean and safe.
Yeah. What happens when you pass a sign like that in someone's house without any kind of, and then the dog bites?
Okay, so the whole thing of strict liability will be flipped on its head. So if you trespass in someone's house, then you are going to be liable for what happens in there. So in most cases. So there's actually a famous South African case of someone who climbed over a wall, was bitten by a dog, and then the dog, you know, the dog was mauling this person. Someone called the police, and the dog got shot by the police. So and it turned out in the end that the guy who owned the dog, he wasn't liable for the injury because this guy had climbed over the fence. So if you climb into someone's house, you know, you are going to be liable. So people are allowed to use self-defense to defend themselves, and self-defense can also be used to protect not just your person or your family, but also your property. And in some very limited, and I really mean very limited circumstances, you can even use violence to protect your place. So if you have a dog and that dog is violent towards someone, it could be considered that it will be self-defense of your property. But it's really important to remember, if you have an aggressive watchdog, while it could protect you in circumstances that someone breaks in, if that dog escapes, or if a child comes into your property, you know, that you've invited in, and your dog attacks someone, you are going to be liable, could even be liable for murder, which has happened in South Africa. So you really, really have to make sure you know what you're doing if you're an aggressive animal, or aggressive animal owner.
I've got 2 minutes to dashunts, man.
Let's...
This conversation hasn't made me nervous at all, to be honest.
Eitan, great stuff,
Thank
man.
you.
Cool,
I look
appreciate it.
forward
It was
to
so
exploring
interesting.
more of the bizarre side of the law with you. That just opened up my mind a little bit. Lots to learn.
Pick up your poop.
Please, I don't want to break my ankle.